Hey everyone, Enrique here. Welcome to another review. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I wanted to talk about that movie after 10 years because I wanted to see how it has changed with time. Like, what are my opinions now that there is no DCEU and was replaced by James Gunn's DCEU. So this is basically me looking at the work that was established before and how it had an impact on not only on comic book movies but in cinemas in general. So why not take a look and maybe see if my opinions change and trying to bring what I thought before and what I think of it now. This was the second movie directed by Zack Snyder and was released by Warner Brothers in their attempts to compete with the MCU. Now that they have all the movies from previous superheroes connected together for one big event movie called The Avengers, it was a smash hit. It changed cinema for a long time, and in many respects, many studios wanted to compete against the MCU in their machine. And now that Disney bought Marvel, it was time for Warner Brothers to step up. Now that they have a whole library of superheroes like Batman, Superman, and they thought, hey, let's combine Batman and Superman now and see how many people think about it. The only problem is they didn't have an established cinematic universe before, so they decided to try to begin new and trying to rush a little bit so they can catch up and be a competition. The problems arose from there, but I'm going to get into those in the review. But let's do a little recap for those who haven't seen Man of Steel or Batman v Superman. So, because this one is following up the first movie from Zack Snyder, which was Man of Steel. So let's do a little recap. Man of Steel was the reimagined origin of Superman, in which we see Clark Kent going through the journey of becoming a superhero, and Zack Snyder adding up some commentary about what exactly it means to be a man and an alien at the same time. All the while we see the threat of Zod and his forces from the Kryptonian planet trying to invade Earth and conquer it as well. It caused a lot of destruction and death from Metropolis, leaving it as a big giant hole in the world. In the end, we see Superman killing Zod. Yeah, our beloved Superman kills the bad guy with a neck snap, and despite everybody's defense of this scene and the motivations, I'm still not a fan of the neck snapping of the bad guy, but the bad guy is dead and Superman becomes the protector of this world. And that brings us to the movie that I'm reviewing today. So, what happens in Batman v Superman? Let's take a look. The movie centers a few years after the events of Man of Steel. We see how people are talking about Superman being a messianic figure and whether he's helping people for better or worse. But in a pretty much retroactive continuity, we see that Batman was the day Metropolis was destroyed, saw the carnage that basically caused millions of people to die and most destructions, including one of the Wayne Enterprises that was located on Metropolis that day, leading to a lot of people dying. This brings Batman to make the decision in killing Superman, believing that he's a threat and he needs to be stopped. All the while we see Lex Luthor hatching a plan using the confrontation between these two heroes and see how he can manage to get the upper hand and kill Superman. Using the technology from the Kryptonian ship that landed on Metropolis, he's going to use all his vast knowledge and the technological Kryptonian technology to create something even worse. All the while we see more investigations, we see more confrontations, more characters appearing, and that's pretty much the movie as a whole. It's pretty much seeing how Batman hates Superman, how Superman hates Batman, and how their confrontation is going to lead to bigger consequences in the future. So right off the bat, there's a lot of things going around in this movie. There's a lot of characters and subplots, and there are a lot to mention. We have not only the subplot of Batman wanting to kill Superman, we also see the problems, the conflict that Clark Kent has about being Superman and be helpful around the world, and how those reactions not necessarily favor him, but as actually make people to question his actions and his morality. We get Lois's subplot of investigating who's behind all the evil schemes that we all know that it's Lex's plan. We see Lex's plans of wanting to kill Superman for actually no reason whatsoever. We see other characters like Wonder Woman making an appearance. We see a lot of investigations, a lot of movements. I mean, I know where the plot is going, but I feel like there's a lot going around and a lot of things that maybe this movie bit off more than they can chew. And that's something that I need to bring up because this movie had a lot of rough cuts and you can see the differences when you watch the theatrical version and the Ultimate Edition, which a lot of people said that the Ultimate Edition is superior. I've seen the Ultimate Edition, and while it adds on some scenes that explain a lot of things and other scenes that could have benefited from the theatrical version, I still feel like this is the same product and it didn't actually make me feel entertained. Like it could explain things, but I feel like, I don't know, it feels like a fix more than anything. And even with that edition, I still feel like this movie has a lot of problems because it has, like I said, a lot of decisions both in character progression and in storytelling that I just don't agree. But in order for me to explain my problems with this, I need to talk about the characters. So let's try to dive into those. So I need to mention the supporting cast. And like I said, there's a lot of characters and most of them are in the supporting roles, like Kevin Costner and Diane Lane as Jonathan and Martha Kent. Yes, Jonathan, despite dying in Man of Steel, he makes an appearance in here, which makes no sense since this is an imaginary conversation that Clark has and during one of the mountain scenes that he has, and which his father is telling him a story, but we don't know if it's actually him remembering a memory or just Clark hallucinating. It just doesn't make sense. Martha, both in the theatrical and Ultimate Editions, tries to bring support to Clark, but not enough, and she's inserted into a plot in a certain way, which I'm going to get into later. We get other characters, ones that only have a few minutes of screen time, like Jimmy Olsen and Mercy Graves. Now, this is controversial, but I didn't like the fact that they killed off these characters. Like, it feels like they're getting rid of supporting characters from Superman, thinking that they don't fit into the world that Zack Snyder is creating. We get other appearances, like we see Holly Hunter playing this judge who is trying to bring Superman to the courts. We get this guy who got paralyzed during the events of Man of Steel, looking for revenge, which it makes me feel like he was about to be built up as the main antagonist or a weapon for Lex Luthor to use, which he ultimately uses, but as a suicide bomber, and that didn't like. Other characters making appearances. We see the villain KG Beast trying to take down Batman, something like that. We get the appearances of known actors Lauren Cohan and Jeffrey D. Morgan as Bruce and Martha Kent, and in the flashback, which establishes this version of Batman, which is also taken from the comic book The Dark Knight Returns, but they feel like cameos in that case. We get the appearance of Luke Perry, played by Lawrence Fishburne, who, I don't know, he doesn't do much and he doesn't feel like a fleshed out character or someone entertaining. We get the appearance of Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I'll say this, Jeremy Irons as Alfred is actually pretty good in this film. But that's because he understood the assignment. He is the butler for Batman, and he's also the moral compass that Bruce needs in his life. But he also brings a little bit of seriousness. Like, he's trying to bring Bruce down to earth, making him realize that, yeah, maybe Clark, maybe Superman is not a threat, and maybe he should stop seeing him as a threat and more like a real life person. And that's something that I do enjoy. I do enjoy those scenes between Bruce and Alfred in this movie. I just wish that there were more, if that makes any sense. We also get the appearance of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, making her appearance in the DCEU, and arguably the most favorable or most enjoyable character, not only in this film, but in all the other films. It's complicated, but let's just say that Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman making an appearance is amazing, if not for the fact that she actually kind of saves this movie for the most part. But it's still good to see her, and it's good that Gal Gadot understood the assignment. And hey, Zack Snyder knew how to make a badass woman, so that's like kudos for the director there. Now let's talk about a character, a female one, that I really didn't enjoy, and that is Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Now, before you say anything, I do think that Lois Lane, or the actress Amy Adams, is a good actress. She has done a lot of good roles. She has proved more than enough to make her look like she's an actual Oscar-winning or an Oscar-worthy candidate to be in a lot of good movies, serious ones or funny ones. That being said, I just don't think she's a good Lois Lane. And that extends for the main reason that during this film and in the others follow-up, she's just a prop. Like, they gave her the subplot of investigating a bullet that was in Africa when she was there with the dead Jimmy Olsen, and she was investigating on what happened or where this bullet come from, which will lead to Lex Luthor. But other than that, and her relationship with Clark, which feels like there is zero chemistry. I'll be honest, I didn't believe the chemistry between Lois and Superman in this film, because they feel like they just met, or at the very least there's not something clicking there. I mean, I felt it with the movie Superman by James Gunn, because they interacted with each other, supported each other, challenged each other. That I believe. Here, not so much. She's just there and just does the investigation, but most of the time is also the damsel in distress. Like, just, I mean, I get that Lois is a damsel in distress in previous versions, but I also feel like Lois has more attitude, more sassiness to her performance, but I didn't feel it with Amy Adams. She felt more like an investigator and just Superman's girlfriend. I didn't get anything other than she loves Superman, and that's it. I feel like there should be more, and that's my issue with this version. So I'm sorry guys, if you like this version of Lois, fine, but I don't. I just don't think it's good enough. Now let's talk about another controversial casting, in this case Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. But is actually Lex Luthor Jr. the actual Lex Luthor? No, guys, this is Lex Luthor, not Junior, not anything. This is the version of Lex Luthor that Zack Snyder wanted to put in his film. You can say that, yeah, this is the young version, but no, this is not the young version. This is the actual Lex Luthor that Zack Snyder wanted to put in his film. The reason why people or why others have said that this is Lex Luthor Jr. is because there was the rumor that Bryan Cranston was supposed to play Lex in this film, but for some reason it didn't fly by, and thus they decided to cast Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, and maybe people said, oh, this is Lex Luthor Jr. Like, this is not supposed to be the actual Lex Luthor. That's wrong, guys. This is just an excuse. This is the Lex that people wanted to put, that Zack Snyder envisioned for this film. Now, this Lex, same motivations as the other ones, wants to kill Superman. But the motivations are not exactly made clear. Like, we know that Lex hates Superman because he has all these powers and believes that he should have those powers, and does everything in his mind or in his will to try to demoralize Superman or bring him down a peg and make him his soldier or use his powers for his own means. This Lex Luthor is kind of like that, but it feels like he's more maniacal, more insane. But I probably should mention before I get into this further that this version of Lex Luthor that you see that is vastly different from the ones that came before and after is actually a version of Lex Luthor in a comic book, specifically Superman Birthright, in which we see a version of Lex Luthor with long ginger hair, same motivation, same shots from the comics, and this explains why he hated Superman so much. In fact, this is probably what they use in the TV show Smallville to develop the rivalry between Superman and Lex. But in this, it just feels like, I don't know, disconnected. Like, we needed a Lex Luthor who saw Superman's powers for his own benefits, and maybe this is just crazy, but I would have made Lex Luthor seeing the destruction of Metropolis as an opportunity for him, because he wants to use the destruction and the backlash against Superman to his own means. Like, he's actually thinking of every angle he could utilize it on, and he used Superman to get rid of other people, other superheroes. Maybe he threats him with the kryptonite or with his mother's life in order to make him kill Batman or something like that. And maybe when he fails, he creates his own Kryptonian suit. Like, think about it. This movie could have bring the opportunity for Lex Luthor to use the technological devices from the Kryptonian ship that was left in Metropolis to create himself into a suit or give himself superpowers. I don't know, something crazy. But then he creates another monster from Kryptonian technology and Zod's corpse, and that just doesn't make any sense to me, at least. He feels like he's not in control, like he wants to be in control but doesn't know how, and that's a huge problem for me. Next we have Clark Kent, aka Superman, played by Henry Cavill. The progression of Superman in this film is how he's trying to save lives, but he's keep being questioned or criticized about his actions, how it makes him feel, what is the right thing to do, and his conflict with Batman, which honestly feels like a necessity rather than something natural. And you can see the problems that arise in this film. So, like I said before, Superman in this film just doesn't feel like Superman. I can see the opportunity. I can see Henry Cavill being Superman in the right script and the right movie. But this isn't it. And I feel like Superman is more reactionary. Like, he just says things like, no one stays good in this world, like Superman is a joke or something like that. Like, he doesn't feel like Superman because he's doing things, he's saving people's lives, but we don't see something personal that connects us to this character other than, oh, he's the good guy, he's saving people, and he's doing the right thing and trying to be respectful, but he doesn't do anything to defend himself. He doesn't go to court and say, listen, I know that I have this massive amount of powers that might be a threat, but I promise you that I'm not a threat, that I'm actually good, that I was raised by good people, that I was shown the good ways. Sure, it contrasted with what we saw in Man of Steel, but we can see that Superman is having a brain, that he has a mindset, that he says, no, I'm on the side of humanity because I grew up here, but we barely see that. And I know that visuals are all about it, but there needs to be a context behind those visuals, and that is something that I just don't see in this version of Superman. He's just there, does his things, but we don't get what we actually sense about him, or a character trait, or something like that, something that makes us believe that this is actually Superman. Now that brings us to Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. When this casting was announced, I remember thinking, yeah, this is going to work. That this is actually a guy that I can see be Batman. If you see him in Argo, that actually makes me think that, yeah, this guy could play a good Batman if they gave him the right script, the right suit, and yeah, I could see this guy being a Batman, or at the very least, being a bad guys and Superman. Here we see a version of Batman that is not exactly from the animated series or from the newest comics. which is a Batman who respects life, who uses his intelligence and his skills to make sure to stop the bad guys and put him in jail. But instead we see a Batman who has lost his way and starts killing bad guys and even branding them with his signature for whatever reason. In the extended version we see that the Brandon is a death sentence in prison, so yeah. We see that this is a more ruthless version of Batman. And before you say anything, no, it's not he values life more than ever. And you don't see that in his face, but you know through his actions and motivations. Here, I get it. It's a version of Batman who just decides to get rid of the bad guys and decides to see Superman as a threat. And this is the moment where he realizes that he has to be good, and when he confronts Superman, which I'm gonna get into in a moment, but yeah, I get that. Batman that lost his way and tries to find himself once again. I see that in a good point, but I feel like we didn't get enough from this version of Batman. We just got introduced to it years ago, but we never got the sense of what makes it different from Christian Bale or Michael Keaton. We needed more, and thankfully Ben Affleck is trying to add more scenes and more characterization from this version of Batman. But I feel like we were left off with a couple of questions, like what happened to him that was so bad that made him want to kill again? What happened to the version of Robin? Where's the Joker? Because we don't know what happened, because it's supposed to mean that he was responsible for this version of Robin to die. I don't know. We need more. And I need to see what made him realize that he has to kill Superman. We get it. The destruction of Metropolis, the destruction of his Wayne division, but I feel like there should be more there. But I will say this. Ben Affleck did a magnificent job as Batman, playing the brooding badass, but also the charming playboy nature that Bruce Wayne has. And yes, it's really good to see Ben Affleck in action, doing a lot of cool stunts and performances alongside other actors, Henry Cavill, Jeremy Irons, Gal Gadot. He really does have a good understanding of the Batman character. Now let's talk about the production design and the effects. Let me just say right off the bat that I do like the designs that they give to some of the costumes and some of the props that they use. For example, I like this version of the Batcave looking a lot more modern and organized. I like the Batmobile, which looks a lot badass. I like the designs of some of the interiors of some of the places like Rexport, the Wayne Manor, the statue of Superman. Some of the effects that they added in here, like the Doomsday Monster, the Kryptonian ships, and all the other stuff, it looks amazing. It really looks like this is a visual marvel. There's just a few problems. For one, the effects, I feel like they overstay their welcome. Like, they don't feel real enough for us to be convinced that they are actually there, and they sometimes look dark enough for us to even see what are they. Like, there are some interiors that I feel confused, like where we are right now, or why does it look this way? Like it has some sort of gigabyte or what is it called? G.I. Geiger's designs, but it feels more dark and brooding. Some of the shots and designs that we see in some of the scenes feel too dark and colorless. Let me just say that I'm not a fan of Zack Snyder's lack of color, because it feels like it's robbing its movie from having nature to having some personality or distinction. I get that that's his whole MO. He likes to show things that are not necessarily for kids, but I feel like there should be more color to either Superman, to the heroes like Wonder Woman, or even Metropolis. You try to create a distinction between one place and the other. In Gotham, we can buy it. We can see the dark. We can see the bleakness on that city. But Metropolis, I feel like it should be more. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just get sick of seeing the same degraded colors that we have seen in all of his movies. That's just me. The action sequences are sometimes good and sometimes really not good. Well, let me just say off the bat, the action sequences of seeing Bruce chasing the bad guys with his Batmobile feel great at once, but then when they use CG too much, it feels like it's sticking out of the action. The sequences of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman fighting Doomsday are great, but sometimes, like I said, it doesn't seem like what we are seeing. Like, we don't know exactly what we're seeing, or if what they're doing, or they're fighting or not, or where they are right now. Like, there's on his tracks and actually convince him that he's the good guy and then his mother is being kidnapped. But yeah, we have to have a fight scene. But this comes to a point that I need to address. I don't think this is a fight. If anything, I feel like this is a straight up beatdown. Like, I've seen some shots that Superman gives to Batman, but I feel like that they're not enough. Like, they didn't went crazy with this fight. It feels more like Batman has more of the upper hand, like he actually uses the kryptonite that Lex Luthor had more effectively, like he actually uses it to stop Superman right on his tracks and actually gives him a proper beating. And I feel like that's not exactly what I think of when you're fighting equals. It feels more like the Batman is basically straight up beating down Superman and calling him a menace, or at the very least that he's not a man, that he's not a god. And that's creates a conflict, in my opinion. Which brings me to everybody's favorite scene, Martha. So let's talk about it. Like I said, the whole movie was supposed to show Batman losing his way and how by fighting Superman was finding himself. The whole Martha scene was actually remembers that he had a mother of his own by the same name of Martha Kent. In this case, Martha is the word that is used for Batman to realize I'm becoming the monster that funny that I have a mother with the name Martha, and it's sharing the same name as the mothers of both Batman and Superman. It's just hilarious, and it makes me wonder, what would happen if I tell Batman and Superman about my mother's name?
Soups? Bats? My mother's name is Martha.
Anyway, let's close down with the things that I enjoy and the things that I don't. Let's start with the good. I enjoy Ben Affleck's Batman, Jeremy Irons as Alfred, the action sequences with Wonder Woman and Batman, the cinematography, the shots, everything that Zack Snyder managed to do well in those areas. I do think that those are the best parts of the movie. And I do believe that given its own movie, that maybe we would explore more of his version of Batman, what makes him tick, what is his history with Gotham, and what made him realize of his mistakes and virtues. The bad stuff is pretty much involving anything about Superman, whether it's about his motivations or his problems of being a heroic figure and how people react to it. Jesse Eisenberg's performance as Lex Luthor, Amy Adams' Lois Lane being basically just there. Some CGI moments that I feel like they're not aged very well. Some of the subplots that I mentioned, like the guy in the wheelchair being used by Lex as a bomb. If I would have remade this movie, I would have made that guy into Metallo. Just saying, like this guy lost his life and believes that Superman is the culprit. So he decides to become a machine or become Metallo, using the kryptonite as a weapon or as his driving force in order to go after Superman, or maybe Lex Luthor using the Kryptonian technology to make himself into a suit, something like that. But they didn't do in this film. Most of those scenes I just didn't find compelling, and of course the nightmare scene. So let me just say, I didn't like the nightmare scene. It felt like a blunt reminder that this is supposed to be a build-up for another movie instead of being natural. The shots of some of the heroes from the DC world feel like they don't belong there. Like they just appear for the sake of announcing themselves. Like say, oh, this is our cinematic universe, instead of being natural. And yeah, I didn't like the Flash scene either. Like saying Lois Lane is the key. See what I mean? Like Lois is more of a prop than an actual character, and I just feel like there should be more with her. And that's something that we got in other versions, thankfully. So yeah, those are the things that I have a problem with. So as a whole, what do I think about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice? With all the things that I said, and look at it with a much better perspective. What I don't think this movie is terrible, I do think that it's still not very good. That despite my bias as an MCU guy, if I look at it without being a superhero fan or a Marvel fan, I still feel like this movie has a lot of problems. Like it does feel like there's too much into it, so many character motivations that I just didn't find enjoyable. And as a whole, I feel like it's just, I don't know, a mess for me. I still feel like it's still a much better movie than the ones that we got from Zack Snyder, but I still feel like, I don't know, like it does feel too pretentious at moments, too action CGI in others, and just too overly dramatic. Like, I feel like this movie could have been a lot more. Like, if they simplify it and make Batman and Superman fight for these ideologies, maybe Superman fighting for the government to prove that he's actually on their side, misguiding believe that Batman is a threat, maybe Batman believing that his good days are all passed by, and that his only way to prove himself once more is by fighting Superman and make him realize that I'm a better superhero just like you are. And maybe they both join forces to stop Lex from, creating some stuff. I also feel like there are things that don't make sense. Like, how did Jonathan Kent appear. It's not a Kryptonian and it's not exactly like Jor-El. So what exactly is? Others like, why did Superman left the Kryptonian ship in Metropolis so the government can put his hands on it? Like it should have been the Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica, like it was in Man of Steel. Why does Batman have to brand people? Why Lois is such a bland character? Those are my problems with the film as well, and there are things that I just didn't enjoy as a whole. But that's just me. I can appreciate what the mindset was for what was supposed to be, but I still have my problems with this film alone. And I feel like it could have been a lot better with a little bit of a rewrite and more focus on making their heroes being heroes. If you like the movie, all the power to you. I'm glad that you enjoy Batman v Superman because, hey, I can see the things and, hey, I do enjoy some parts of it. Even the music I do enjoy. It's just as a whole, didn't do much for me. But hey, that's just coming from a guy who watched this film years ago and just has a mindset that is still there from years ago. Maybe in the future I'll appreciate it a lot more. But that's just something that I have to wait and see. That's it, and I thank you so much for listening to my review. Next time, I'm gonna go back and review Daredevil,